There's a recent spike in the number of people infected with the coronavirus, now known as COVID-19, in South Korea. How is this connected to China? Mimi.
Well, a source told me the Chinese government has been investigating current Shin Dong Chi members in China, not just those in Hubei, but all across the country, particularly those with links who might have traveled to South Korea when the coronavirus outbreak erupted. Also targeting those who might have linked to a 3-day mysterious funeral held in a South Korean hospital with ties to the Shin Dong Chi Church. We don't know so far how many of the existing estimated 20,000 Shin Dong Chi members in China have been screened, but those who have been screened so far are clear from the virus. It is an ongoing investigation, so there might be a surprising result at the end.
The church is facing a huge backlash and they've been accused of being negligent. What is their response to this outbreak? I mean, John, you've been living in Korea for many years. What are you hearing?
Well, Shin Dong Chi is coming under a lot of scrutiny at the moment. In particular, a 61-year-old woman in the city of Daegu who is a follower and who is considered to be a super spreader of this virus has come under a lot of attention because she actually initially refused to be tested for the virus after developing symptoms, and she also attended church services, so potentially opening up many more followers to infection. There are also questions about whether this church is actually cooperating with authorities, which are now trying to track down about 200,000 followers and subject them to testing. Now, the church has said they will fully cooperate in this effort, but officials have raised some questions about whether the information they're being provided about the membership is actually accurate. And actually, earlier this week, authorities in Gyeonggi province, which is near Seoul, the capital, raided a church building to seize computers and get their own information about the membership list.
Well, I'm sure Chinese government will be very interested to get their hands on that list as well to find out its ties in China. We're not sure at this stage if there is any cross-governmental collaboration during the investigation of Shin Dong Chi in China and Korea, but if there's not, there certainly should be one.
John, isn't there a long history of these controversial religious groups in South Korea?
Many of these fringe sects have been involved in some of the most major scandals in modern Korean history. In 2014, for example, when the Sewol ferry sank, killing more than 300 people on board, the de facto owner of that vessel was actually revealed to be the founder of an obscure sect, and he had remodeled that vessel, making it unsafe to sail. Also in 2016, when former South Korean President Park Geun-hye was impeached, a major figure in that scandal was a close confidant who is the daughter of a Korean cult leader. There have also been founders of these sects convicted of serious crimes such as sexual assault and rape. There are various explanations that have been offered for why Korea seems to have to be some way prone to these organizations. One person I spoke to, Tak Ji-il, who's a foremost expert on this issue, said that it could have something to do with the very difficult modern history of South Korea. You had the Japanese occupation in the early 20th century, the Korean War, and then several decades of military dictatorship. And people like Tak have said that perhaps in some way the Korean people during these difficult periods were looking for hope and comfort, and you had charismatic figures who could then exploit that environment and allow some of these sects to flourish.
Well, it seems, they do have a very solid history of just showing how influential these groups are. Now, Mimi, I want to come to you about all the reporting that you're chasing and currently still working on very hard for us. You have been directly speaking to a Shin Dong Chi member in Wuhan. How did Shin Dong Chi gain so many followers in China? There's about 20,000, I believe.
Yes, I've tracked down a 28-year-old Wuhan Shin Dong Chi member. She has confessed to me gatherings have been ongoing until December when the news of the virus broke out. Most of the 200 members are under self-quarantine, but online preaching, but preaching sermons are still very much active online in China's cyberspace. So Shin Dong Chi has been gaining, has picked up its momentum in China since 2010, where a large number of returning laborers from Korea brought the religion to China. They target existing Christians and university students with lucrative biblical study, and their missionaries are known to be very friendly, go out of their way to befriend you, and at the same time, they operate on a very elusive, secretive, and sophisticated framework, which makes it really hard to track down. They are seen as China today as the most competitive sect by Christian groups.
Oh, wow, some really big lines there. So do you think, this will ultimately change how the South Korean government treats these groups in the future?
Well, earlier this week, the South Korean parliament passed a number of bills to address the outbreak, including measures to have mandatory testing of people who are suspected of being infectious. Also, the government has ordered the temporary closure of Shin Dong Chi churches around the country. Now, in the eyes of some South Koreans, that is not enough. More than 750,000 South Korean people actually have petitioned the government to dissolve Shin Dong Chi. However, to actually take measures targeting specific fringe sects will be very difficult because South Korea, like many democratic countries, has strong protections of religious freedom. And constitutional experts I spoke to said that in any way targeting one religion as opposed to another will be very difficult and probably unconstitutional.
Maybe any more additional information to add to this conversation?
Many people criticize China for imposing over-the-top measures in containing the virus, including banning all religious gatherings. But at least we are not seeing any major outbreaks in these groups in China. But one thing we have to be mindful of is that the link between the virus and religious group might just well be accidental. It might be happening simply because it is in a mega church.
Please keep us updated with your reporting and, hopefully shine some clarity on all of this. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.